Hi, what I have here on the workbench today is a Bodnar fast Risetime variable frequency pulse generator. The model number is LBE-1322. Bodnar Electronics is a UK-based company. It makes a wide range of electronic products. As usual, I'll provide a product link in the video description below for those who are interested. So what exactly is this Bodnar fast Risetime pulse generator, you may ask? Well, it essentially is a square wave generator with extremely fast rising edge and falling edge. For those who follow my channel, you have probably seen my reviews of many oscilloscopes over the years. One of the tests I typically do is measure the rise time of a fast rising signal using my avalanche pulse generator and verify the claimed oscilloscope bandwidth. The avalanche pulse generator I built uses a generic 2N3904 bipolar transistor which can generate pulses with sub-nanoseconds rise time. But in recent reviews of some high bandwidth oscilloscopes, we started seeing some limitations, as the rise time is no longer sufficient for measuring oscilloscope bandwidth above roughly 300 MHz with my avalanche pulse generator. The rise time of this Bodnar pulse generator is spec'd at just 30 picoseconds, which is about 20 times faster than that of my avalanche pulse generator, so it should have no problem verifying the bandwidth of oscilloscopes into the gigahertz range. On their website, they actually have 3 fast rise time pulse generators. The rise time is identical across all the 3 models. The LBE-1322 I have here can output between 30 kHz to 300 MHz with the output amplitude adjustable between 50 mV and 1.2 volts. It also has a trigger output and synchronization input. Now, before I take any measurements and show you the bells and whistles, let me actually briefly talk about how fast rise time pulses are usually generated. Using an avalanche transistor like the 2N3904 or 2N2369 is probably one of the easiest ways to get fast rising pulses. Depending on the specific transistors used, you can probably achieve a rise time of several hundreds picoseconds. For even faster edges, you can build a pulse generator using either a step recovery diode or a tunnel diode, and you can use transmission lines to improve the rising edges even further. But these RF and microwave circuits are not the easiest to work with. Now, there are even more exotic techniques. For instance, you can use a laser-triggered photo-conductive switch. With this technique, you can actually get down to less than 10 picoseconds with a rise time. But this is not something you can do with hobby equipment. The Bodnar pulse generator relies on ultra-fast comparators available on the market. They use analog devices AD-CMP572, which has a typical rise time of just 35 picoseconds. There are comparators even faster than the AD-CMP572. For example, the HMC874, which has a rise time of just under 20 picoseconds. But it is also 8 times more expensive than the AD-CMP572. So using the analog device's AD-CMP572 is definitely a balanced choice. Here is the product box the LBE-1322 was shipped in. Let's actually take a look at what's inside. Of course, I had already opened it up earlier, but let's take a look. So here, besides the pulse generator itself, we have a very high quality USB cable. There's a thank you card. And we have a BNC to SMA adapter. And here we have additional adapter. And also you can see that each of these pulse generators are actually individually calibrated. And you can see here are the specs for this specific unit. You can see the measured rise time, fall time, and overshoot, and so on and so forth. So that is very nice. Let's actually open it up first and take a look inside. I just took out the board. Isn't that beautiful? You can see the layout is very clean. Bodnar definitely knows how to build RF circuitry. And you can see the heavy VS stitching around the ground plane. Anyway, the build quality is definitely top-notch. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlay a high-res picture here so that we can see the board a little bit better. Near the USB port, we have a PIC microcontroller, which has built-in USB support. Now, you don't see a crystal oscillator around this microcontroller because it has an internal 8 MHz oscillator. Bodnar provides a companion PC application, and it will recognize the board upon plugging in, and you can use it to set the frequency and signal amplitude, which we'll take a look a little bit later. In the middle here, we have a Texas Instruments CDCE6214 clock generator. It has 4 pairs of differential outputs, and you can see the pair here, pin 21 and 22. Those are one pair of the differential output, and they are used to drive the output comparator. Besides the output SMA port, the LBE-1322 also has a secondary SMA port, which can be configured as either input or output. If it is configured as output, it will serve as a trigger output, and if it is configured as input, you can actually input a clock signal so that the output is synchronized with the input clock source. You can see that we actually have two traces coming out from the CDCE 6214, and the outer trace is actually for the sync input. The inner trace is for the trigger output. Whether the port is configured as input or output, that is determined by the microcontroller. We will also take a look at this when we take a look at the software. The key component in this pulse generator is, of course, this chip right next to the output BNC. It is an ADCMP572 ultra-fast comparator. It has a typical rise time of just 35 picoseconds. The trace connecting the output to the SMA is deliberately kept very short to preserve the signal characteristics. Here we have a small 8-pin chip, and I think that might be an LM27761 switch capacitor voltage inverter based on the components layout here. This Leo-Bodnar pulse generator allows you to set the output pulse's polarity, so you would need both the positive rail and the negative rail, so I guess that's what this chip is for. And that's pretty much what is on this board here. Now let's take a look at the backside, and you can see all the via stitching through the backplane here. So that's pretty much all there is on this board. Compared to an avalanche pulse generator, it obviously is a lot more complicated, but the principle of operation remains fairly simple. Alright, now let's take a look at what this pulse generator can do. For the first test, let's actually take a look at the waveform using my Unity MSO5104HD, which is a 1 GHz oscilloscope. I reviewed this scope a while ago, and I will leave a link in the video description below if you are interested in checking that one out. The rise and fall time is specified as less than 0.35 nanoseconds, according to the spec. And you can see on the captured waveform here, we actually are showing roughly 310 picoseconds rise time and 320 picoseconds fall time. I can expand the scale a little bit, and you can see it better. So you can see 305, 320. I can expand it even further. You can see here. So this is our rising edge. So here we zoomed in at the rising edge. You can see that we have a little bit of overshoot, but overall, the rising time is very fast at 318 picoseconds. So let's actually move to the right. And let's take a look at the falling edge. You can see that the falling edge is equally fast. Currently, it is at roughly 320 picoseconds. So if you do the calculation here, you will see that the bandwidth is roughly 1 GHz. Speaking of the rise time calculation, it depends on the digital filter implementation, whether or not it's a first order or second order digital filter. The calculation is, for example, 0.35 over rise time if it's a first order, or 0.45 over rise time, that's a second order. Now for this Unity, you can see that the manufacturer's official number is actually using the 0.35 factor. Again, I usually use the 0.35 factor as a first order approximation, and the obtained bandwidth should be in the ballpark. Of course, if you know the actual implementation details of the filters, you can adjust the factor accordingly. And here I just want to show you briefly why impedance matching is actually important. Currently channel 1 is configured as 50 ohm. So let's see what happens if we change it to 1 megohm. So come here, let's see here. And right now if we change it to 1 megohm, and you can see that the captured waveform is heavily distorted, and you can see that the rise time increased significantly. Instead of 0.35 nanoseconds, right now is 1.4 nanoseconds. So if your oscilloscope does not have the 50 ohm option, then you will need a through adapter here. So let's take a look. You can see that with the through adapter, the rise time improved significantly, but it's still slower than what we had before. So right now you can see the rise time is actually 550 picoseconds instead of the 350 we measured before. So let's expand that, and let's take a look here. And here we're actually measuring about 600 picoseconds. So the reason for that, I suspect, is probably because the through adapter I used here is not the top quality one, and definitely not rated for a gigahertz signal. With that said, you can see that with proper termination, the result is still much better than what we had before. And now let's actually use the pulse generator to verify the bandwidth of the MSO2304X. And this one has a bandwidth of 300 MHz. And you can see here is a captured signal. The rise time is roughly 850 picoseconds, and the fall time is roughly the same. So using the calculation, you can see the bandwidth is actually slightly above 300 MHz. And for this test, I'm using my Unity UPO1204. And this one does not have a 50 ohm input, so I'm using my through adapter here. You can see that the measured rise time here is 1.14 nanoseconds, and the fall time is roughly 1.35 nanoseconds. So the measured bandwidth here is actually higher than the specified 200 MHz. I guess one of the advantages of the Leo Bodnar pulse generator is that the output amplitude is actually quite low. The maximum is probably around 1 volt. An avalanche pulse generator, on the other hand, the output amplitude is close to 100 volts. So for most of the scopes, you can't really use the built-in 50 ohm termination because the voltage is just too high. Of course, you can always use a pass-through adapter. It shouldn't cause any problem because the pulse is so narrow, so there shouldn't be any significant power dissipation. Next, let's actually take a look at the configuration software provided by Leo Bodnar. So let's fire it up. And it's actually a really simple configurator tool. Let me actually plug in the USB. The pulse generator should be automatically detected. And you can see that you don't need to install any driver. The device is automatically configured and detected. I zoomed in a little bit so you can actually see the scope and also the user interface here. It is detected as LBE-1322. That's the model we have here. Here is the serial number. Here is the software version. And currently, the pulse output is configured as 50 MHz. Of course, we can change it. So let's say we want to change it to 10 MHz. And you can see that the output automatically changed. So let's say we wanted to do 100 MHz. Again, you can see that the output is reflected immediately. Of course, you can also change the output amplitude. Here we have 1164 millivolts, and we can change it down to, let's say, 1 volt. You can see that immediately the output is reflected. Let's change it back. I'm not sure what exactly this 1164. Probably they did some calibration, and this is actually the 1 volt output. I'm not sure, but let's change it back to 1164. And this option below the external trigger and sync, that's actually the other port I mentioned earlier to you guys about. And you can see currently we configure as trigger output. By the way, let me zoom out. I had already connected the trigger output to channel 2, and you can see that from the sine waveform. Of course, we can change the polarity of the output as well. For example, right now, this is the normal output, and I can change the polarity to invert it. You can see that now the sync signal output and the actual waveform is actually 180 degrees out of phase. As I mentioned earlier, we can also configure this port as clock input. The benefit of that is instead of using the onboard clock, you can actually drive it with an external clock. So let me show you that. So for instance, right now we can change that to sync input. Of course, now we lost synchronization. So now you can see we can set the input frequency. So this is actually, let me just use a default here. So for example, right now we wanted to use 10 megahertz as the external reference. So let me turn on my signal generator here. And you can see, let's set the frequency to 10 megahertz. By the way, the amplitude, the maximum you can input is 3.3 volts. So let's actually do 3 volts. So let's actually connect to the first generator output. Let's enable the first generator. So now the signal output is actually synchronized with the clock output from the signal generator. So those are just some of the quick demonstrations of this Leo Bodnar LBE-1322 pulse generator. Anyway, let me turn off the signal generator here. And let's restore the factory default. So you can see that the factory default essentially is a 10 MHz output. Of course, with a fast rising edge pulse generator, you can also use it to do TDR measurement to measure your cable length. For this demonstration, I'm going to measure the length of this BNC cable, which is roughly 1.15 meter. So let's actually take a look. And you can see that I have hooked up this T adapter. So now let's hook up the cable here. And you can clearly see the staircase here, and that's because the signal had reflected back from the unterminated end of the BNC cable. So let's actually take a look at the initial rising edge and the reflected rising edge here. So that should give us an idea of the length of the cable. So let's do cursor. And here's roughly the first rising edge. And here's the second rising edge. And we're talking about 10.5 nanoseconds. So assuming the velocity factor of the cable is 0.7, and we can get a rough idea of the cable length, and I just did some calculation, it's roughly 1.1 meter, which is very close to what we actually have here. Let's actually measure the length of the cable here. So here I have a tape measure. Let's do it here. You can see, sorry about that. We're right at 1 meter, roughly 1 meter 5 centimeters, which is pretty close to the 110 centimeters we calculated. Again, thanks to Bodnar Electronics for providing me with this LBE-1322 pulse generator. I'm sure I'll be using it frequently in my future oscilloscope review videos. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new. If you liked the video, please remember to give it a big thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more videos like this in the future. Your participation makes videos like this possible. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.